Hey everybody, this is Lisa with Lisa Marie Accounting, and of course today is Sass It Up Live, and we are going to be sassing up motherhood, and my guest today is Cre'shea Hilton. Cre'shea Hilton, right? Did I say that right?
It's
okay. Cre'shea. Okay. So first I want to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about me, just in case it's the first time hopping on. Again, my name is Lisa. I am the owner and founder of Lisa Marie Accounting. I am known as the Sassy Southern Accountant. And basically what that is I am a numbers and profitability coach. And so I help women entrepreneurs take the chaos out of their business numbers and make them sassy and sexy. And yes, it is really actually possible. So that in the process, they feel empowered by their business numbers, and they're actually truly able to grow and thrive in their business. So I want to, without further ado, introduce my guest, Cre'shea Hilton. And will you please give them a little bit background information on you and what you do, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So like Lisa said, my name is Cre'shea Hilton. A lot of people just call me Shay if it's easier to remember, which I'm totally okay with. I currently work as a birth and postpartum doula. Like, that's what my main gig is. I have another business with essential oils. So the two have kind of like just melded together in supporting women in a natural way. A lot of people are shocked that I ended up in the birth and postpartum field because I'm a classic trained French pastry chef. That's what I went to college for. That's what I thought I wanted to do with my life. And there was even a decade of my life where I was a chef in a private sorority house for about 7 or 8 years. So people are surprised that I kind of made that shift. But once I had my first child, there was a big shift in my life. And I have always been more of an empath, and I have a love to care for others. And I've always been a nurturer. I'm the firstborn. So that came really, really natural to me. When I became pregnant with my first baby, I had heard so many horror stories. I heard all the bad advice. I heard everything negative that you could possibly hear. And so for me, that did have me really scared out of my mind. And I didn't feel like I had anybody that could like kind of guide me in a more positive way. And when I had my firstborn, everything that could go wrong really did go wrong. And I was so supported by my doctor and my family, but I had a near-death experience, and I just felt like I didn't have anybody that I could turn to say, like, what's really going on here? Someone could tell me without judgment or bias. Like, I didn't have that person. And then after I had my first kiddo, I realized that person was a doula. And I learned about doulas, and so I became one. And doulas are basically a support system while you're pregnant and you have a baby and after you have a baby. So I really did need a doula. During that time, I didn't have one. And so I knew that I needed her. And so I became her as fast as humanly possible. And now that's what I do. I support women in the throes of childbirth. I support women in the throes of postpartum. I'm that mom and that person that you can say, I'm not feeling right. Is this normal? And I will not judge you, because I guarantee you there are a million moms out there that have probably felt the same way. So being a doula and providing people with a natural lifestyle and alternatives like essential oils is all about me showing other people options and how they can feel more empowered to choose what fits best for them, because all births look different. Even if a mama has 5 babies, each of those pregnancies are individual. Each of those babies are individual. And her experience is also different. So that was my big why. I had a pretty traumatic experience with not the support that I needed. And now here I am, and I really, really enjoy doing it. So that's why I do this work.
Right. And I love it, because one of the things that I've understood, is the fact that my birth with my first daughter, was totally different than my second, and in a lot of areas. In some cases, the first one, I had a ruptured membrane with my first one and didn't realize it. And so she was born almost 6 weeks early. And then with my second one, I was severely swollen, so much so that it didn't look like I had toes. And I actually went into a postpartum with my second one. We were afraid I would do it with my oldest, but I really didn't. I kind of, circumstances, we thought that's what would happen. And I actually was able to just bury myself with work and surround myself with being a mom. Do you know what I mean? But when I had Heather, I was 38 years old. So it was 8 years later. I was starting completely over. And there was a huge difference, and you're not prepared. I mean, it's a big difference with, sometimes I think it's harder to have kids closer together, but in a lot of ways it's harder to start completely over too. And your body reacts differently. You mentally react differently. And so I actually fought postpartum after my second one, more so because I was older and because she had her nights and days mixed up. She had severe colic after she was born. So sleep was non-existent for almost the first year of her life, more non-existent than normal with with having a newborn. And so that took its toll. Plus I was, having to go back to work and I the day job, and I didn't want to. I cried every single day. I did not want to go back. So
you're not the only one. I think we all do.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I did more so, but it made me that much more determined to reach my goals, I think. But not having someone who understood is a big, huge factor, I think. Now, my question to you is, you said that you actually, when you and I talked, and one of the things I love is you bring essential oils into the doula. And now what's your why on that? Why did you bring that with the doula? Because that's not normal.
Yeah. So, my scope as a doula is I can't do anything medicinal, but I can say to a mom who says, you know what, Cre'shea, I really don't like using this over-the-counter product. I don't like putting these toxins on my baby or on myself, and I just want less of that in their lives and our lives. I can say, you know what, there are wonderful tools, and they're called essential oils, plant-based items that you can use. And homeopathy has been used for thousands of years. That was there before Western medicine even existed. Mm-hmm. And so when they ask for an alternative, I realize, because we use oils in my family, that those are a wonderful alternative that can be used safely and effectively and with great results, with a little bit of education. So that's why I brought it in, because I have found that moms want more options. They just want more options. And secondly, they want more control over what their children are being exposed to. And listen, I haven't met a mother who hasn't woken up with a child in the middle of the night who's puking their guts up, and they're like, okay, I'll be back in 30 minutes. I got to run to Walgreens, So nobody wants to do that. So to have something like right in your cabinet, in your kitchen, at home, they can be like, oh, give me 20 seconds. I can mix something together to help settle their stomach.
Right.
I mean, to me, that is one of the ways that you can sass up motherhood and just make it simpler with more ease and more flow. Because I think at the end
you're knowing what's in the product. I mean, I know for me how many times I went to Walgreens and my oldest had reflux really bad when she was a baby, and so looking at the products and you're comparing it. Now, I did use an all natural product, but just standing in Walgreens and actually comparing them and trying to figure out which one was going to give you.
There's 30 different ones.
And not putting something bad in their system, because of course you have your children, and so you're all about mama bear cubs come out really, mama bears come out really big when it comes to our kids.
Shift after you've had your babies, like suddenly something you thought very strongly about before can have a drastic shift after you've had a baby.
Right.
Call it hormones, call it mama bear instinct, but you go to the Walgreens and there's
perspective. Right. Your perspective changes.
Yeah.
Your perspective changes. And anyone who says it doesn't, they haven't had kids yet, because once you do, it does. Your perspective totally changes. And I love this. So my next question, because one of the things we talked about is the difference in what people think postpartum actually is. And so when you say postpartum, what do you mean? Because most people are going, oh, well, I don't always have postpartum. Most people don't always have postpartum depression, but that's not exactly what you're talking about. So explain what you mean.
honestly, I find that when I mention the word postpartum, people immediately think depression or anxiety, postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety. And although that word can be connected to those two things, it's not always the case. Not all women struggle with postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety. Postpartum is the period of time after you've had your baby. We consider it the first year of your child's life. It's postpartum. So the first 3 months after your baby's born, we lovingly refer to as the fourth trimester. The baby's no longer a baby, they're no longer in your body, but it is those first 3 months, you getting to know your baby getting to know you, you're learning feeding dynamics and sleeping dynamics and what their cries are signifying and stuff like that. And so it's just another trimester of really getting through some hard stuff, right? So there's growth spurt and digestion and all kinds of things. So yeah, postpartum is just a term referred to after you've had your baby for that first year of life.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think that's important because the doula, which you are, and how you help them is you help them through that transition of the first year of a child's life. And it doesn't matter if it's your first child, it's your second child, or your third child, because each time it's different. I mean, that's one of the things we were talking about is with me, the first year after I had Kinsey was totally different than after the first year of me having Heather, because there was different circumstances. You know, Kinsey was early, and so there were other issues involved. So that postpartum period was different with her than it was with Heather, and they were each unique in their own way. And there were some times where having someone on the outside, like a doula, and especially with the essential oils, having someone to been there and understood and be able to say, you know what, let's try this, or you know what, I understand, just to listen. Because as much as we want our spouse to understand and to be there, they can to a certain extent, but let's face it, ladies, they can't have children.
Yeah. And
they're also not going to actually understand what in the hell is going on with these feelings and these emotions and these attachments through the first year. I mean, I know they want to, but they can't, because they can't have kids. You know, so I mean, they don't.
I always talk about how postpartum doulas are for dads too, or partners, whatever family dynamic looks like. They're for dads and partners too, because they are. Why is that? That is really important, because I have met husbands who have struggled with postpartum depression. As is kind of silly as that sounds, it's also a new identity for them, because now they've become dads, or they've become a father for the second time, or you know, they're absorbing their partner's stress and feeling like maybe they can't quite relate, like you were saying. You know, they're wanting to help, but you have this mama bear that's very protective of her little one. You know, so postpartum,
and they don't know quite how to help.
Yeah, postpartum doulas are for dads too, because
that's awesome.
Because they don't have the hormones surging through their body. I can say to them, so this is what your wife is experiencing. It's day 7. You might expect some baby blues. That's why she won't stop crying in the shower. Or she's engorged. So I'm there to be almost like a bit of a buffer to help educate him gently, or the partner gently, so that they know kind of what to expect and not to be alarmed. And also on the other end of that, they can know from me what to expect in case they do need to feel alarmed, or if they do need to step in and say, sweetheart, let's go to the doctor. You know, so they're an extra set of eyes that can be really, really powerful if they are supported in the right way too. So partners, doulas are important for dads as well, because I could show them how to be really, really instrumental in the newborn that first trimester, and they want to feel valuable, important too. So,
right. Yeah. They do. They want to too, and then that's the struggle, because they're like, okay, well, I didn't, but I'm a new dad, and how do I become more involved and have that connection, because I didn't give birth, so I don't automatically have that connection. So that's really important. I like that. So what kind of things should we look at in order to determine what kind of plan that we can put into place to help them? What sort of things should be looked at?
Yeah, so I always talk about like actionable steps that families can take when they are pregnant prior to having their baby that will really set them up for as much success as possible when they have their baby. I always kind of joke that babies don't need a lot of stuff, although it's fun to get them all the things like the clothes and the strollers and the car seats and all of that stuff. I really just encourage families to focus on the top 3 things that feel most important to them as a family when they come home. And that's going to be different for every family. So what is that? Is it the feeding? Is it nursing? Is it sleeping? Is a schedule important to your family because that's your personality type? Is it eating? What's your family going to look like when it's like, okay, whose turn is it to cook dinner? So those things I always say, like, pick 3 things and go from there. Don't try and tackle Rome in a day. Start with 3 simple things that you feel will be most important to you when you are at your most tired and most drained. And then start a plan from there. And then also keep it simple. Babies need shelter, food, and a car seat and physical human connection. That's really all that they need. Mm-hmm. I think when I was a baby, my mom had me naked probably the first 7 months of my life with a diaper, and she breastfed me, and that was it. So really, that's what babies need. They don't need a ton of gear. They don't need a ton of stuff. Of course, those things do make our lives easier in some respects, but don't overwhelm yourself with stuff. And if you're more of like a type A person and you have like your whole plan just mapped out, I want you to take a deep breath and remind yourself that when your little baby arrives, that baby may toss it completely out the stinking whack, right? So if you are type A and you like things organized and you like to know what's going to happen and you want your baby to do exactly what you want to do, you need to take a deep breath, give yourself some grace, and go eat some chocolate, because that's probably not what's going to happen. You get the baby that you need, I believe, at that time in your life. It's a lesson you're learning. And also ask for help. I think that's just so important to ask for help, whether it's from your family or your friends, or if you can afford a doula support in your life, if it's your mom or his mom or her mom or whatever that looks like for you. Line that up. Say, oh, you'd like to come see the baby? Can you bring a meal? Can you bring a gallon of milk? Someone that's willing to come over and wash and fold your clothes. If it's not a doula, sit and chat with me, because when you have first had that baby, human interaction feels so critical. You don't want to feel like you've gone crazy. And so having that connection, and they can bring you a sandwich, that's awesome. It's not the time, 4th trimester and that first year of postpartum, is not the time to be proud in your ability to do all of the things. It just isn't. It's not a race. It's a marathon. It's kind of long distance. You take your time, you train slowly. It's a time of recovery, hormonal shifts, bonding, and discovery. And you really owe it to yourself to get really good care during those first weeks. You're already a superhuman for having the baby to begin with. So there's no you're already a superwoman for having the baby to begin with. No matter how the baby came out of you, like, woo, you grew a human.
Exactly. Most definitely. So what steps would you recommend that as moms can take now to help us have more balance? And you said that word, and us moms are really big on that, I think, is simplicity during that postpartum period. Because even now, I think about back, and my girls, y'all, are 6 and 14, okay? So they're 8 years and 8 days apart. They're fixing to be 7 and 15 come May. And I could have had some simplicity. In fact, even now, I think even now to have the simplicity is just so important. So what can we do? What steps can we take to have more balance and simplicity, especially during that first year, but even now as moms?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing when I meet with when I meet with clients prior to them having the baby, I think they anticipate that I'm going to show up and say, okay, here is your action plan, and here are the things you need, and this is how it's going to go. But really, it's not that complicated. I think in the midst of being pregnant and being excited for your baby to arrive, people forget to ask themselves the basic questions. So that's what I do. Excuse me. I say, What does sleeping look like in your home? Like knowing how you want your baby to sleep. Like, are you going to co-sleep? Are you going to room share? Do you absolutely need that baby in another room? Do you need that baby 5 inches from you? Which I say, there's no right answer, but there's a safe way to do all of them. So let's explore that. Who's in charge of what? You would be really surprised by these answers. Like in my house, when I have the babies, I'm nursing them all day long. So if my baby wakes in the middle of the night and needs a diaper change, my husband is the one to do it. Like that is his responsibility, and to burp the baby because I'm already wiped out. So knowing who's in charge of like the garbage, or who's going to be in charge of maybe giving the older kid a bath on the bath day of the week, and really just talking about it, because when you're tired and your reserves are super low, you don't want to have a fight. You don't want to be like, okay, now you do this and you do that. You really want an idea, a game plan. Setting up a game plan, setting yourself up for success is really, really important. Like another basic question, what does feeding your new baby look like? Are you completely opposed to breastfeeding? Which if you are, that's okay. But let's talk about how we're going to feed your baby alternatively. Is it going to be bottle feeding, formula, a little bit of both? Are you going to pump because you're returning to work? Do you need to build a supply? So we need to talk about those things. Like how are we?
There's no wrong or right answer to that. That's the thing I'm trying to get at is it doesn't matter if you nurse for a year, nurse 6 months, you nurse 3 months, or you bottle. The whole point is like she's saying, is put a game plan together for you to have simplicity, and so that your partner can help you. Because if you have your partner be responsible for certain things, then he's going to feel more involved. Right?
Yeah.
He's going to feel more involved. And then you are going to also have the help you need, but also have a game plan and have that simplicity. Like for me, I chose co-sleep. Okay. Especially with Kenzie. Kenzie was a preemie. She had to be woke up every 2.5 hours, no matter what, stripped down to her diaper to make her wake up, because she wouldn't wake up, and feed her. And I was nursing her. I was not getting up to go trot into another room. Trot back. I just wasn't doing it. I wasn't getting any sleep as it was. So because I had to strip her down to her diaper to wake her up, she didn't want to wake up. She thought she was in my womb still. So she wouldn't wake up. So co-sleep was what worked. Right. With Heather, we tried to do a bassinet in the room, and that didn't work either. She wanted the connection, and again, waking up every 3 hours. So we ended up co-sleeping. Now, we moved her to a crib sooner than we moved to Kenzie, but again, that was because there was different circumstances, and we did have a plan in place. Yeah. And you just have to, like you said, you have to remember that no matter what you do, your child may decide that they have to do something different.
Yeah, and that's
true. Able to go with the flow.
And what you described actually is what you did was called bed sharing. Your baby shared your bed with you, which is something my baby does. And there are a lot of people who have very, very strong feelings about that. But as a doula, if that's what you decide to do as a mom and as a family, I can walk you through how to do that as safely as possible, and also give you the benefits and the risks of it. That's my job. But the thing is, people don't necessarily, when I say ask yourself the basic questions, what will happen is that they'll say, nope, the baby's going to sleep in a crib. This is how we want it to happen. Then the baby arrives and things change. So then I step back in and say, so you were very strongly feeling about this, but remember the other options we discussed? Which one feels right for you right now, since that's not really working out very well? So that way they're not going, oh, what should I do? But they've already been exposed to those simple ideas of what their options are. So if they decide to breastfeed, but they have some problems, they already know where their local La Leche League is. They already know the lactation consultant's number at the hospital. Just getting some of those stressors removed and already having the information. It's like studying for an exam. You've got your notes. That's what it is. You've got your notes. And my last suggestion is to ask the questions you're afraid to ask. That's the most basic thing you can do. I assure you that most women have already had the questions stirring around in their postpartum mind, but they're too afraid to ask because they think they're the only one that is why does my baby's belly button smell? And what's going to happen when it falls off? Like, they're afraid that their baby is the first one to do the thing that their baby is doing. But in reality, they're not. They're like the 4 millionth mom to have it happen. So,
well, I think that's important, because if I'd have had someone be able to show me, like I did the bed sharing, but I'll be honest, I was freaking out about doing it because I wasn't sure the safest way to do it. We figured it out. I don't know if it was the safest way, but we figured it out. But to have someone there who could actually give those expertise in that moment. Hi, Krista. Thank you for joining us. To have someone to give us that expertise in that moment, even 14 years ago. I mean, the way the technology has gone and the way you have the natural oils in there, I'm going to be honest, if I was able to have that back, when I had Kenzie almost 15 years ago and I'd had Heather almost 7 years ago, I'd have jumped at it because, I mean, you're not the first one to have a child. You're not the first one to have one that's going to be born early. You're not the first one to have one that cries nonstop.
Absolutely.
Your 90 days and stuff. And I thought I was. I was like, oh my gosh, I was freaking out. It was my second child.
Yeah. And it's so funny. I will never forget this. My first child is 7 years old, and I remember a few days after I brought him home from the hospital, my mom was with me, and I asked her a question, and I was like, is that normal? Like, very panicked and crying, and she just turned to me and she was like, I don't know. She was like, it's been 27 years since I've had, 27 years, So, it had been a long time, and she was genuinely afraid to give me an answer because her spectrum of knowledge was from almost 30 years ago. So things have really, really changed, and there have been so many more studies done and information that's available. I think the key is finding someone that you feel safe telling that information to, number one, and number two, making sure it's a reliable source. Have they had training or education in it? Don't let it be just some random mom off of a Facebook group, because then you're gonna put yourself into a spiral of despair.
Well, not only that, you're gonna get across someone who's got set views, and I think that's really important for people. If y'all are in that postpartum, if you're about to have a child, I suggest you contact Cre'shea, because the reason why is because, one, that's her background. So even if she has a preference, she's going to be able, and someone like Cre'shea is going to be able to give you a the ins and outs, pros and cons of breastfeeding and nursing versus bottle feeding and pumping. And she's going to be able to tell you, hey, look, just because this is what you want to do, for me, I wasn't able to nurse for 6 months. Okay. I wanted to nurse as long as I could, but I'm going to be honest, I wasn't able to. It was my body. It wasn't that I refused to. I even tried pumping at work. I wasn't producing enough milk for my oldest to be able to sustain. So we had to go to formula. Because the more stressed I got about it, the less I produced. And you don't realize how much the stress actually affects that, but it does. And so someone like this is going to be able to give you the ins and outs of all the areas of, like she's saying, co-sleeping, co-sharing the bed, putting in the crib. And then when the baby comes and, like mine, has their nights and days mixed up or is screaming bloody murder, or like my first one who was 5.5 weeks early, and instead of having to nurse, or be able to let sleep through the night, and she wouldn't wake up, we were having to make sure she ate every 3 hours so she didn't go below 5 pounds.
Right.
But the bed sharing was really, truly the only option, because that was the only way anybody was going to get any sleep.
It was the life raft, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, and like you said, I have thoughts and feelings and opinions about all of those things and the way I've done it in my own home, but it's varied from each of my children. I have 3 kids. It's been different with each kid.
And that's what I like. I like the fact that you see that different things are for each one.
Right. But you would never know, if I'm working with you, how I feel about bed sharing. I'm just going to give you information without that judgment and without that bias. If that's what you want to do, then let's talk about how we can do that safely for your family.
Mm-hmm. But that's important, that's important. If, because just because even if you say, okay, I don't want to do bed sharing, and then your child, because I wasn't going to do bed sharing with Kinsey. Kinsey was going to sleep in her crib. Okay, but she had other ideas. She came home with 6 years old. Okay. Yep. And you know, because you'd heard all kinds of stories about bed sharing. Oh, they'll never sleep in their bed. They'll never blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, whatever. But the point is that when Kinsey was born, everything that I thought I was going to do, like Cre'shea is saying, was thrown out the window, and I had to adjust. And so that's when, okay, bed sharing was just something we were going to do, because, again, it was a life raft. What little sleep I got for the first 6 months of Kinsey's life. Now, after 6 months, I didn't have to. Literally, first 3 months. After the first 3 months, I didn't have to. I chose to keep her in there until she was 6 months. Then we gradually we moved her to her crib, because we wanted her to start sleeping in her crib. And is it the easiest adjustment? No, but if you do it a certain way, which you would be able to help with that, it makes it so much easier. You know, and you have to kind of be stern, and you have to let them cry, and that's hard. But you know, there's ways you can keep doing it to where it's an easy adjustment into the crib. And
it's all about assessing your personality types as parent, and assessing the personality type of the baby, and there are ways to gently transition babies to their own sleep space. It might take a little bit more work and time and elbow grease. You know, there are just lots of different ways that you can do it. But I think it's so important that women know they have someone that they can talk to, because I think there's a lot of shame in postpartum, because women feel alone. They feel scared. They feel like the decisions they're making with their babies aren't the best ones or the right ones. And so ultimately, they are afraid to be vulnerable with other women, the exact people that they should be connecting with, the exact people who have been in the same exact spot as them.
Right.
And so when there's a lot of shame centered around one of the supposedly happiest times of your life, you grew a human, you gave birth to a human, and now I'm going to raise a human. It's not.
You scared and overwhelmed.
It's not setting you off on the right foot. That's not an energy space that I think any new mom should have to be in. On top of the hormones that are cycling through your body and milk, breast, or bottle confusion, like that's not something that any mom should have to deal with. So I really work on transparency in postpartum and ways that we can connect a whole lot more.
I like it. I love it. Okay, so without further ado, I think you said, I want to swear you sent me a freebie or opt-in for the ladies that would be interested. So will you please tell us about it? And then after the live, if you'll post the link in the comments for them. And then, of course, for anyone who doesn't get to watch this live, remember, it stays up for 48 hours, and then you can catch the replay via email. And then in about 4 weeks, it's going to show up on my YouTube channel. So make sure that you're subscribing to my YouTube channel. Make sure so that way you're getting it and you'll be able to see it, because now the Sass It Up Live shows 2 at a time every 4 weeks are going to show up on my YouTube channel. And I'm really excited about that, because we have a lot of guest experts we've already had. We have a lot more coming. And I'm telling you, we're going to be sassing up literally all areas of our women entrepreneur lives. And I think that's really, really important. So will you please explain to us what the freebie and option is? And then after the live, if you'll put the link in there for them.
Right. So my business is called Mothering Wild, because I kind of live a crazy life with my kids.
All of ours.
Oh man, I've got 2 boys and a little girl, and I really think that motherhood is a wild journey. And so the freebie, the opt-in on my page is like the top 10 tips to live your wild and find your free. Now that can be applied to motherhood, postpartum, if you're starting a new business, all kinds of things. But I really think it's applicable to just being a woman in general and finding things that help you feel your most full self.
Mm-hmm. So being a mom and being a woman, and then on top of that, being an entrepreneur, I think it's really important. I think it's really important. And that's one of the reasons why I started Sass It Up Live, is because we as women we are constantly putting ourselves last. We are constantly putting our kids, or whoever, our business spouse, everything before us. And this is a way, y'all, that you can actually bring simplicity back to your life, to your business, so that you can have those things. And like she said, bring the wild and the free. I really, truly love this. I really do. So I think it's really awesome.
Yeah.
So ladies, if you're interested, make sure you click the link, make sure you opt in and you get that for us. And then without further ado, I'm going to say thank you very much for being my guest on here. Thank y'all everybody for showing up. Thank you for watching the replay. Again, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, because that's where it's going to be in a couple weeks. Make sure you're on the email list, because that's where the replay will go after 48 hours. And as always, I love all of y'all. And if you have any questions, make sure you post them in the comments, and we will, of course, make sure that we answer. And we will get back to you as soon as we can. So thank you very much, Cre'shea. I really appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day.
All right. Bye, y'all.